I still remember sitting at the kitchen table last fall, coffee in hand, and glancing at my retirement account. I wasn't planning anything big, just curious how things were holding up. Then I saw it. In just 1 month, the value had dropped by nearly 15%. My heart didn't exactly stop, but it sure beat a little faster. I'm no stranger to the markets, but that was the moment I paused and asked myself, is this still the right plan for where I'm at in life? If you've had that same moment of doubt, whether it's after a dip in the market or just lying awake at night wondering if your savings will really last, you're not alone. We're a growing community of folks who've lived, worked, saved, and now just want to live wisely and well. That's the quiet anxiety so many of us feel after retirement. The paychecks are gone, the nest egg is what we've got. We're all figuring it out in real time. But what I've learned and what I want to share with you today is that there are warning signs. That sinking sensation like someone just pulled the rug out from under you. I've felt it too. And while a little up and down is part of investing, when it starts to feel like a roller coaster, sharp drops, wild climbs, unpredictable turns, that's a sign your portfolio may be carrying more risk than you're comfortable with. Subtle clues that your investment plan might be too risky for this stage of life. You can ask your advisor for a risk tolerance review or try a simple online tool. But more than that, just listen to your gut. If your money is making you nervous, that's a sign it's time to slow the ride down. And during our working years, we might have welcomed that. A simple rule of thumb. If you're seeing monthly swings of more than 5 to 7% up or down, that's a red flag. Retirement portfolios should be more like a calm river than a choppy sea. Sure, some movement is natural, but you shouldn't need Dramamine just to open your statement. A dip today could mean a gain tomorrow, and we had time to ride it out. But now, when we're depending on those savings to live, time isn't always on our side. A sudden loss could mean having to sell investments when they're down, just to cover regular expenses, and that's not a ride we want to be stuck on. And the good news is, once you spot them, you can do something about it. And suddenly the game changes. It's not about growing fast anymore. When the market dipped, he lost nearly $25,000 in a matter of weeks. The stress hit hard, not just on his finances, but on his health. After speaking with an advisor, he rebalanced to include more bonds and dividend-paying stocks. Now, his account doesn't shoot up as fast, but it doesn't crash either, and he sleeps better for it. It's about preserving what we worked hard for and making sure it supports us as long as we need it. And let's be honest, retirement doesn't come with a rule book. Nobody hands you a checklist saying, here's the safe level of risk for someone in their 60s or 70s. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 5 of those signs. These aren't theories from Wall Street. These are practical, everyday things you can look for in your own situation. Whether you manage your investments yourself or have someone helping you, because this stage of life shouldn't feel like a guessing game. It should feel like you finally getting to enjoy the rewards of your hard work without worrying that one wrong move could wipe away years of savings. Things like how often your portfolio keeps you up at night, whether you've got enough cash set aside for a rough patch, or if you're still holding on to assets that might have made sense in your 40s, but now, not so much. We'll talk real numbers, real situations, and real solutions that can help you sleep a little better at night. If that sounds like a conversation worth having, I'd be honored if you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the Vibrant Elders channel, and share your thoughts or questions in the comments. So let us dive in, starting with the first sign that your investment plan might be taking you for a bumpier ride than you bargained for. Number 1, your portfolio still feels like a roller coaster. You know that feeling you get in your stomach when you check your account and suddenly see a big drop? Here's the thing, volatility is just a fancy word for those wild swings in value. So how do you know if your portfolio's too volatile? I met a gentleman last year, Sam, who was 72 and still had 70% of his investments in tech stocks. If your investments are still swinging like you're 35, it might be time for a little risk check. Coming up, we'll talk about another piece of the puzzle. What happens when the unexpected hits and you don't have a cash cushion to fall back on? Number 2, you have no cash buffer for rainy days. Let me ask you something. If your water heater broke tomorrow, or your car suddenly needed $1,000 worth of repairs, where would the money come from? If the first thought that pops into your head is my investment account, that could be a problem. Because pulling money from your portfolio during a downturn can do real, lasting damage to your long-term plan. Think about it like this. Imagine you need $5,000 to cover an emergency now. If the market is down 15% and you have to sell some of your investments to get that cash, you're locking in that loss. The money's gone and it doesn't get the chance to bounce back when the market does. That's what they call sequence of returns risk. It's a fancy term, but all it means is that the timing of withdrawals matters a lot. That's why having a cash buffer is such a lifesaver. I like to call it my peace of mind fund for most retirees. Having 6 to 12 months of basic living expenses in a savings account, not in the stock market, not in a CD that locks it away, can mean the difference between staying the course or scrambling when life throws a curveball. Let me give you an example. My friend Darlene is 68, retired, and lives mostly off her IRA when COVID hit in 2020. And the markets took that big dip. She didn't panic because she had about 9 months worth of expenses stashed in her credit union account. She rode out the storm without touching her investments. Meanwhile, her neighbor sold some stock at a loss and is still trying to catch up. So how much do you really need? Look at your core monthly needs: rent, groceries, insurance, medications, and multiply that by 6 to 12. Even having $10,000 to $15,000 set aside can be enough to buy you breathing room when the unexpected hits. And don't worry if you're not there yet. Build it slowly. Maybe set aside a little from each Social Security check or required distribution. Over time, that cushion grows, and with it, your confidence, because let's face it, retirement is supposed to be about enjoying life, not worrying about the next market dip. And with a solid buffer in place, you'll be ready for whatever life throws your way. Number 3, you've left high-risk assets in retirement. When I was younger, I didn't think twice about taking risks with my investments. I had time on my side, a job to fall back on, and the markets felt like a thrilling ride I could afford to take. But retirement? That's a different story. Once you stop earning a paycheck, the rules change, and keeping too many high-risk assets in your portfolio can quietly turn into a ticking time bomb. Here's the thing: the kinds of investments that helped you grow your nest egg in your 40s or 50s, like small-cap stocks, emerging markets, or speculative sectors, can be too volatile once you start drawing from your savings. That roller coaster ride might feel fine when the market's up, but what happens when it takes a dive just as you need to make a withdrawal? I knew a fellow named Carl, retired military, smart guy. He kept about 70% of his money in tech and small-cap stocks because, as he put it, they always bounce back. But last year, when those sectors dropped hard, he was forced to sell at a loss just to cover basic expenses. That money wasn't given a chance to recover. It was gone for good. Now, I'm not saying you should dump all your stocks the minute you retire. Stocks still play an important role. They help your money keep up with inflation. But as we age, our portfolio should lean more toward balance and protection. Studies show that retirees who gradually shift toward more conservative assets, like bonds or dividend-paying stocks, tend to preserve their wealth longer and sleep better at night. So how do you know if you're still holding too much risk? Look at your allocation. Are you still 60% or more in high volatility stocks? Does your account swing wildly every time the market hiccups? That's a sign it's time to dial it back. One simple rule: if a 10% drop would keep you up at night, it's too risky. You want a mix that matches your current needs, not your past ambitions. The good news? Adjusting doesn't have to be drastic. Even moving 10% from risky equities into bonds or stable funds can soften the ride and steady your income. It's not about being afraid, it's about being smart, because when you've worked a lifetime to build what you have, it deserves to be protected with care. Number 4, your plan lacks regular review. When was the last time you sat down and really looked at your investment plan? I'm not talking about glancing at the balance or reading a headline about the stock market. I mean actually reviewing what's in your portfolio, checking if it still fits your life, and making sure it's still working for you. For a lot of retirees, the answer is, oh, it's been a while, and I get it. When things feel steady, we don't feel the urgency. But here's the thing: life changes. The market shifts and your needs evolve, and if your plan doesn't keep up with those changes, you could be walking into trouble without even realizing it. I learned this the hard way after a friend of mine, Ron, ignored his investments for 5 years. He thought, I've got a plan, I'll just let it ride. Then a market downturn hit, and because his portfolio hadn't been rebalanced in so long, he lost way more than he should have. That was his wake-up call, and it was mine too. A good rule of thumb: review your investments at least once a year or whenever a major life event happens. That could be anything from retiring to facing a big medical bill, moving, or even just a significant market drop. The idea is to make sure your money is still aligned with your goals and your reality. And these reviews don't have to be complicated. Think of it like a routine checkup. You look at what percentage of your money is in stocks versus bonds. You see if you've got too much cash sitting idle or too little set aside for emergencies. You ask yourself, do I still feel good about the risks I'm taking? Even small tweaks can make a big difference. I once shifted just 5% of my stock holdings into bonds after a review. Doesn't sound like much. But during the next dip, that move helped soften the blow. It gave me peace of mind. So mark it on the calendar maybe every fall, just as the leaves change. Make it a tradition, like checking your smoke alarms. Your retirement deserves that attention, because staying on top of your plan doesn't just protect your money, it protects your confidence, your choices, and your peace of mind. Number 5, you don't factor in healthcare and longevity. I'll never forget the moment I realized I might be underestimating what retirement would cost me, not because of trips or hobbies, but because of staying healthy. One day I was talking with my doctor, and he mentioned how fast healthcare costs were rising. He wasn't being dramatic, just honest. That night I sat at my kitchen table and thought, have I planned enough for this part of my life? Healthcare isn't just a bill here and there, it's a steady rising cost that can quietly drain your savings if you're not prepared. And if we're lucky enough to live long, which many of us will, those costs don't go away. In fact, they tend to go up, according to Fidelity. A 65-year-old couple retiring today can expect to spend over $300,000 on healthcare alone in retirement. That's not even including long-term care like assisted living or home health help. The problem is, many investment plans don't truly account for this. They might assume you'll spend less as you age, but healthcare often flips that assumption on its head. You go out to dinner less? Sure, but your prescriptions, copays, and premiums go up. That's why it's so important to build in a cushion. When I turned 65, I made a change in my planning. I carved out 10% of my savings as a health buffer. It's not fancy, I just keep it in a low-risk fund that's easy to access, but it gives me peace of mind knowing I won't need to pull from my long-term investments if a medical expense surprises me. You can also look into things like long-term care insurance, supplemental Medicare plans, or even health savings accounts if you're still eligible. And always factor in inflation. Healthcare costs tend to rise faster than the general cost of living, so what feels manageable now might not be in 10 years. Longevity is a blessing, but only if we're ready for what comes with it. The better you prepare for healthcare today, the more freedom and choice you'll have down the road. So if you haven't run the numbers yet, don't wait. Talk to a financial advisor, look at your plan, and ask, am I really ready for 20, maybe 30 years of retirement and everything that might come with it? Because being prepared means more than just protecting your money. It means protecting your dignity, your options, and your peace of mind. So now we've walked through 5 key signs your investment plan might be carrying more risk than it should. At this stage of life, maybe some of them made you nod and say, yep, that's me. Or maybe they gave you a few things to think about. Either way, just recognizing these signs is a powerful step. Let's take a quick breath and remember what we've covered. If your portfolio still feels like a roller coaster, if you don't have a solid cash buffer for emergencies, if high-risk investments are still doing most of the heavy lifting, if you haven't reviewed your plan in a while, or if you haven't factored in healthcare and the long road ahead, you're not alone. These are common blind spots, and thankfully they're fixable. The best part? You don't need to overhaul everything overnight. Maybe today you start by checking how much of your savings is in cash or easily accessible funds. Maybe tomorrow you jot down a reminder to review your portfolio allocation and see if it still matches your goals. Or maybe this weekend you schedule a chat with a financial advisor just to make sure you're on the right track. None of this is about fear. It's about being in control, about giving yourself the tools to enjoy retirement with less stress and more confidence. Because at this stage in life, it's not about chasing huge gains, it's about protecting what you've worked so hard to build and using it to live fully and safely. And if you're thinking, I should have done this sooner, I've got news for you. It's never too late. Even small tweaks like shifting 5% out of stocks into bonds or adding just a few thousand to your emergency fund can make a real difference over time. Remember, your financial plan isn't carved in stone. It's a living, breathing tool that should evolve as your life does. So give yourself permission to review it honestly, adjust what needs adjusting, and feel proud for doing so. If this video gave you clarity or helped you feel more prepared, I'd love for you to click that like button and subscribe to Vibrant Elders. And more importantly, share in the comments. What's one thing you're planning to check or change after watching this? You never know who you might help by sharing your insight. You've already done the hard part, saving, preparing, and showing up. Now it's about refining, safeguarding, and staying steady, because retirement isn't the end of the road, it's a new chapter, and you deserve to walk it with your head high, your heart calm, and your finances working for you, not against you.